What is that?
Lexington.
I mean, why
What?
is this a 9v9?
He's playing co-op.
Oh!
Yeah. All right. So Cthulhu, are you still here? I saw you in chat earlier. I want to make sure you're here. If not, I'll ping you. I'll just do it anyway. There's 2 instant Cthulhus on this Discord, so I'll just ping both. All right. So this is the Tier 8 Lexington. And it's an American aircraft carrier. It's probably considered one of the best carriers at Tier 8. The nice thing about American carriers is that they've got a lot of flexibility. You've got your HE dive bombers, which are fantastic for taking out destroyers and setting fires, whatever else. The torpedo bombers are okay. They're not great, but they're fine. And then of course the rocket planes, they can work. So that's the thing about the Lex. Now, in terms of tech tree ships, I would probably rate her up there, if not the best of the Tier 8 tech tree ships.
I would rate her the best Tier 8 Tech 3 CV.
Amongst the premium ships, she's probably the top 5. If you were to add premium ships into it. But anyway, go ahead, Grunty.
I just wanted to say I think she's the best Tech 3. I was done.
Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at your build. Now, this is co-op, but we don't care. We're going to look at the build. We're going to talk about the decisions that you made into putting the ship together and stuff. So right off the bat, I noticed that you don't have the B-hull unlocked on the Lexington. Now, in co-op, it's probably not going to matter that much, right? What you care about is your planes. And then later, you can put the XP into the B-hull if you want, or wait until you've unlocked the midway.
I mean, he has to, right? Like, you have to unlock the B-hull to get to the midway. Eventually.
Oh, that's true, because it goes straight down that line. Yeah, that's true. So, okay. But I understand the idea of going for the planes first.
Yeah, I would do the planes first, though. The only thing, like what the USN CVs have, they have 2 upgraded rocket planes. One is Tiny Tims and one is HVRs.
Right.
And most people would probably use the HVRs on the Lexington just for the reason that if you go for the Tiny Tims, they only drop 6 rockets per drop, which is not a lot. And considering how long the delay is, it's very, very easy to miss with these rockets. So the consistency on the HVRs on the Lexington is probably a little bit higher than it is on the Tiny Tims.
Now, the Tiny Tims, though, of course, they've got the better penetration if you're trying to go after cruisers and stuff. That's what we're looking at here.
You
Big O, you want to say something?
Yeah, another thing about the Lexington, that whole line is just very forgiving. And the H-5 rockets for Lexington and Midway, in a sense, it's just better. You get more rockets, you get a better chance of starting a fire. Not percentage-wise, but you get more rockets that'll give you that chance.
Also, yeah, at Tier 8, the HVRs actually have still the pen to penetrate cruiser decks. Because they penetrate 27 millimeters.
33.
No, that's he has the Tiny Tims, I think. Oh no.
No, I'm looking at the HFAR. If you look at the Tiny Tim, they penetrate 38 or 68. I mean.
33. Okay, I was off on the value then. That is even better because now you can penetrate the battleship's bones turns too. That's even less reason to use the Tiny Tims than at Tier 8.
Right. Okay. I saw Cthulhu said he wanted to play around with the Tiny Tims, so I get it. Nothing wrong with doing the experimentation there. And also he mentioned he's got the B-hull unlocked, but he hasn't bought it. He just unlocked it so that he can go and buy the midway, which makes sense. You save credits that way.
I'm actually not even sure what it does. I think it's just hit points and better rudder shift. I don't think you get more planes if you upgrade the hull.
No, so if you upgrade the hull, it would do anti-air too.
If you just play co-op, I can totally see not buying the hull at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your
For random
constant.
battles, I would definitely buy it.
So this is kind of funny. Your constant damage and long range actually drops with the upgrade by 7 DPS. But you get a lot more medium range, and I'm guessing you get more short range. 112 versus... No, you lose short range too. That's interesting.
You probably lose some 37 millimeters or something. Or like some 20 millimeters and maybe a 128 and get some mid-range. I don't know. I would have to look it up.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm still in game. I can actually check it.
Okay. In any
It
case,
doesn't really matter.
yeah. And then of course there's the survivability between the two. You get some more hit points, better rudder shift. Yay. So, whatever. Yeah, the B-hull's not going to benefit you unless you're playing random battles. Even then, technically the B-hull isn't that important unless you're getting yourself spotted and shot at. Then you care about it, right? But otherwise, it's
which
not
you
that big of a
don't in
deal.
co-op for random battles.
Right.
It happens more because you could get sniped, for example.
Yeah, I suppose the B-hull would help against carrier sniping. That's true. So
It's
okay.
actually, yeah.
Let's continue on with the build. Cthulhu, is this a special commander or just a standard? I'm guessing it's a standard. So anyways, you've gone for air supremacy, improved engines, aircraft armor, search and destroy for your patrol radius. Okay, okay. Survivability expert, and then proximity fuse for torpedoes. So
I
this
have
helps you.
no issues with that build except for that search and destroy. I would have saved that point. There's basically no point in ever taking this skill unless you go for a full fighter build. And even on the full fighter build, you don't always have the point for it.
I would disagree with you there if it's going to be only co-op. Because what this does is it allows him to put a plane in front of the enemy's plane squadron and farm kills that way. That's
You don't need it for that. The
only
enemy
reason I could
CV
see it.
just straight lines into you anyway. So you just have to put the fighter down a little bit earlier.
Right, but I'm saying this gives a little bit more flexibility, and for 1 point skill, that's kind of cheap. That being said, I think you'd be better off going for interceptor at that point.
I would not spec anything for co-op on the fighter skills.
It's XP and credits.
You kill the fighters like if you place your planes in front of the enemy planes, you get the kills no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't need it against co-op CVs. They are dumb with their planes.
Wolf says, why not the line 4 aircraft armor? This one here, enhanced aircraft armor. So, if you are skilled enough with carriers, aircraft armor doesn't matter, because this is so binary. If you take the flak hit, you take a bunch of damage, or you don't. So it doesn't help much.
I would only take this on a Friedrich Roosevelt, because the planes are so slow and sluggish that you can't always take the evasive maneuvers to dodge a flak.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, you should be able to dodge it anyway. And if you happen to fly into an enemy ship that has the priority sector and defensive fire or something active, it's gonna kill your planes no matter if you have that skill or not if you catch a flak.
In other
because
words,
the damage gets amplified so much.
In other words, the skill doesn't really matter. It's good for people that maybe are new to carriers and learning them, but once you understand the importance of like trying to turn and weave and dodge flak, you're not going to take that much flak hits. So, Old Great Cat 61, thank you for the follow, by the way. Welcome aboard. Line 2, torpedo arming distance reduction. This one.
Skill.
So that's, okay. So pros and cons for this one. It's mostly just pros. You can drop closer to your target.
The only con is that it costs 2 skill points. But if you have a CV that is focusing on its torpedoes, you're probably gonna end up taking this skill. Unless you like I think my Eagle doesn't have it because I choose to have a fire chance instead and buff both the bomber speed and the torpedo damage. But yeah, if
Yeah.
you
For,
usually want to have that skill at some
for
point.
most carriers that have any sort of torpedo bombers, it's almost a given to just grab it because yeah, you can drop closer to land because of that, since you're dropping closer to your opponent, um, and they have less chance of dodging your torps. The only con really is a lot of people will get in the habit of dropping right at the edge, and what they'll do is they'll drop a little bit too close and the torpedoes will dud out, especially because what they'll do is they'll increase the torpedo speed. These two actually work kind of against each other, right? Because
I
the arming
I,
distance decreases, but if they're faster, the arming distance actually increases a little bit.
I don't think there's a single CV. Maybe on the Zeppelin I still have it, but usually you don't take the torp speed
They're just too slow.
because it increases the distance again. Like it's percentage based now. It's not flat anymore,
Mm-hmm.
so you actually don't get a lot of speed for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to drop further out, which, like, in an ideal scenario where you drop at the minimum drop distance, having a higher speed on a torpedo is completely irrelevant because
Right.
it cancels out. If you drop further away, then it becomes better, but at the same time, you don't want to drop further away if you can help it.
No. So
Mm.
so yeah, rarely you're gonna take both. You usually just take the arming distance. And I forgot we didn't talk about his modules. So he's got Air Group Mod 1, which makes sense. Aircraft engines, torpedo bomber attack time, torpedo bomber HP, and then flight control. Now, here you've got the ability to also increase your torpedo speed. A lot of players will do both of these together and this. And that just kind of hurts.
I would go so far, like, if you want to increase the torp speed, you have to take both to get the
Yes,
maximum out of it.
absolutely.
But at the same time, you're gonna drop rather far out there with that.
Right. Now,
In
the other
regards to the
thing,
modules, I just want to quickly go back to that. I think you can, on the Lexington, you can make the argument for buffing both the torpedo hit points and the dive bomber hit points in the fourth slot.
in the first
It
one?
depends in the fourth one.
Okay.
It really depends on your personal preference, what type of planes you're using more.
Yep.
In general, you have a heal for the torpedo bombers, so that scales very well with more hit points in general.
Yep.
But at the same time, you could make the argument and say, I already have a heal for the torps. I'd rather have a bit more durable bombers.
Right. Something else to consider too is that your torpedo bombers, they drop down to attack and they typically are below flak level when they drop down to attack, whereas your dive bombers are constantly in flak until they initiate their dive, and even then, they're still anti-air that's hitting them. So I know a lot
thought-
of American players like to do bombers.
I thought AA height wise doesn't matter in game.
The height doesn't matter. What you have with the bombers is that they definitely are in the short range AA.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of ships have good short range AA that usually doesn't matter much against the other plane types. But it
Right.
really matters against bombers.
Yep. Right. Because if you think about it, your torpedo bombers, by the time you get within range of short range, you've already dropped your torpedoes, or you're very close to doing it. Whereas your dive bombers, you're typically straight in until you drop. So that's why a lot of people like to go with the dive bombers. Cthulhu, you said you're not very good at dive bombers, so you put everything into torps. I understand that. I would also say that this carrier and the Midway are great opportunities to learn dive bombers. So consider that too.
There is nothing wrong with playing the Lexington for the torps too. Like,
Yeah, sure.
if you definitely like the torp bombers, and this is what your favorite thing to do, you should probably look at the IGN line though.
IJN,
Or-
those are the Japanese carriers. Go ahead.
Or get a Kaga.
So, yes, I mean, Akaga is a fantastic learning carrier for Japanese carriers because of the torpedo bombers and all that kind of stuff. Yes. For Americans, I would say Hornet is also a really fun carrier to play with. Now, I do want to mention, moving forward, bomber flight control is definitely something you're probably going to want to look into, because that gets your bombers to your target quicker. And I want to comment, Wolf, you said that dive bombers are anti-destroyer. Yes, that is true, but don't discount them on battleships and cruisers either. Bombers, dive bombers for Americans are really all good at everything. Because if you think about it, when you go in with your bombers, they've got good penetration, they've got good fire chance, and they're great at clearing away, sweeping away anti-air on enemy ships. So I would absolutely say you can use them anywhere. That's the hallmark of the American carrier line. It's different from other ones that have like AP bombers, for example, like the Japanese or the Germans. On the Midway, you put your 4 slot into bombers. Got it. So yeah, practice it, learn it. Dive bombing is a very important skill to learn in this game. If you want to play carriers, you can't expect to just survive off torpedoes alone.
You can make the argument, like I like to say it, and it's half true. But what I say is like the dive bombers is the only reason to play USN carriers. Like that's their specialty, and that they are great against the destroyers. Like it's the best tool you have against destroyers. What is left? So like if you don't use them against destroyers, like why do you even play the line?
Fair enough. All right, let's get into the replay then. And 1, it's co-op. 2, it's carry. You're probably not going to die, so I'm going to get a screenshot of you launching planes because that's always fun to do. Let's get into this. Tiny Tim rockets are niche market, yes. And right, learn all the different squadron types and their pros and cons, yes.
Each different nation has their... Oh, boy.
Yes.
Each different nation has their own bread and butter. USN is bombers. British is a jack of all trades, really. IJN is torp bombers. Germans, it's the... I would have to say it's the dive bombers. Or the rocket planes.
You can make an argument on the Germans. It can be everything depending on what you spec it, especially if you go unique upgrade on the Richthofen.
So here's the thing that this is what makes dive bombing so nice for Americans. You don't have to worry about angle of attack or drop distance or any of that kind of stuff. For the Germans, you have to learn when to drop your dive bombs to get the best chance of citadeling. The same thing for the Japanese dive bombers. You don't have to worry about that. In American carriers, it's all about waiting until the last second to drop.
I have a little bit of an issue here starting with the torpedo burst. Like, the way you spec'd it and the way you said you're playing, like, this is your best plane type. And I would pretty much never start the game with my best plane type, because you don't know where each of the enemy team is yet, and they are usually still grouped up in spawn. So your chances of losing planes on your first squadron is rather high. Plus, your rocket planes are the fastest ones, so if you want to get initial spots, maybe even start a fire with them that you can capitalize on with a flood afterwards, that would probably be better. It matters less in co-op, but for random battles, that's something you should absolutely keep in mind.
All right, a lot has just happened. I paused it because we need to talk about things, okay? First of all, you put the fighter down and you caught the enemy carrier's plane. Going back to what Grunty said, you probably could have gotten away with that, with not needing the captain's skill, if you had waited a couple more seconds and gotten more directly in front of the bot player's plane, and then dropped your plane, your fighter squadron. Yeah. So that illustrates what I was talking about with Grunty with that extra range. That extra range is what got you those kills there, but you didn't need it.
Yeah, because like the AICV player does not try to dodge the fighters.
Right.
He behaves as if they weren't there.
Right.
So
Next up is this attack run. First of all, you're attacking a cruiser nearly head-on within the anti-air range of 2 ships, the Albemarle and the Takahashi. You popped your heel. Now, generally, the way it works now is when you're going into attacking somebody, all of the enemy anti-air focuses on one plane at a time. The difference, the exception of that, is flak. If you take a flak burst, it hits all the planes. Your heel heals all planes at once as it runs. So the best way to use your heel is if you take a flak burst and all of a sudden all those lines on the bottom change from green to yellow or red. That's when you pop your heel.
I mean, it depends, like, if he's actually gonna take a flak. I use my heel a lot just against the continuous A2 to not lose the plane early.
So the other part of it is, if you're
But the attack angle
expecting,
here is bad. Like,
yeah. The other thing is, if you want to be able to turn back around and drop again, I understand the use of the heel there, but I would say at that point you used it too early. So I don't like your use of the heel for either reason, is what I'm trying to get at, okay? Takahashi's anti-air is greater than its spotting distance. Right, so you know what I probably would have done? I probably would have just noped out of it. Either recalled immediately, or went into attack mode, but attack away from the Takahashi. What that does, when you're in attack mode, you actually take less anti-air damage for your planes. Get out of his anti-air. And then think about...
It's actually not
where you want to
true.
Go.
I
What do you mean
don't
it's not
think
true?
there is no cruiser in the game with a higher AA range than
Oh.
AA detection.
Okay.
At worst, it's the same, but there is no cruiser that has a higher one.
So it probably was the same then in this example. Okay. I also want to comment on the discussion of using rockets to spot first. Yes, Cthulhu, you're right. They do use their boost very quickly. Rocket boost is honestly when you're going to go in for the attack. It's you can use it to get farther forward, but if you know you're going to attack somebody, you have to kind of wait just an extra couple of seconds or two to recharge that boost. Use that boost as soon as you get into anti-air range, and then you just boost straight into them. And that
This is not
negates your anti-air.
There's not a thing about boost. Like, non-boosted rocket planes are faster than any boosted planes you have on the Lexington.
So
The USN rocket planes are so much faster than any other plane type.
right.
Even
So-
if you disregard the boost, they are still faster.
In other words, if you're trying to scout targets, rocket planes is the good idea. Now, something that I sometimes got in the habit of doing is actually using dive bombers at the start. Because dive bombers, first of all, you get the extra plane squadrons. And
Not
second,
on the Lexington.
okay, well, whatever. But if you run into a destroyer that's out in front of everything else, then you can bomb it. But rockets, I agree with Grunty. Rockets are probably the best. And your torpedo bombers, if they are your bread and butter, if you're doing the most damage and therefore getting the most XP out of this, hold them for when you know you want to use them. Don't just throw them away in scouting.
Like, I don't even scout with Kaga torpedo bombers at the start of the game. And that ship has a lot of them. And even there I use a different plane type.
Alright, so there's the drop on the Takahashi. You used your heel, so you definitely want to turn back around and get the next drop in. Okay, you used your engine boost to get you closer. Alright, fair enough, good. Now, against somebody that's a human, that's dodging and stuff, you wouldn't be able to do this, right? The Takahashi would have turned to dodge you, whatnot. But he didn't. You got 3 torpedo hits on him. You're right, he's got 3 attack squadrons. Maybe I'm thinking Midway that's got 4.
You think Midway. You definitely can get a double drop against a human player like this too. The only question is if you get 5 hits total. Probably not, but you can get 2 drops off like this.
You can. I'm just saying, don't expect it, right? Like, I don't know. If I'm looking at a Takahashi that's paying attention, it's gonna be hard to do it.
Like, here's the thing, like, if you don't expect to get 2 drops off, I would definitely do an empty drop and just attack with less planes and get 1 attack off.
What we call a pre-drop, right? Attack beforehand. Look at that hit there. 2 fires, good damage.
Yeah, it cost him every single plane he had, though, except for those.
Takahashi would have dumpstered if a human. See, here's the thing. He was in 2 or 3 ship anti-airs. So you'd expect 2 or 3 ships of like the boosted anti-air, right, hitting the whatever sector reinforcement thing. So yeah, I mean, he would have lost more planes than that too.
Like against it, like this last drop of that, like I wouldn't have done this drop against in a random battle. It's just too much combined AA.
Mm-hmm.
Like the damage you got versus the planes you lost is not worth it.
Right. Hey, go. You can say something. We're both quiet.
No, this is co-op, right?
Yeah, this is co-op. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say co-op when you get a new ship or if you're like exploring a new class of ships. Co-op is the best way to learn that ship. Period.
I would disagree. Yes, I mean, at tier 8, and unfortunately right now it's currently broken. If you're talking about tier 10s, absolutely. Learning co-op. And Cthulhu's really good at playing co-op a lot to learn. Scenarios, I think, are the best way to learn carriers.
You have eaten a lot of luck in this. Like, you could tell because every single plane of yours got damaged at once.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit of a problem with dive bombers in particular. Like, if you want to look down at the reticle and the target, you don't have a good view about the flak anymore. But you gotta pay attention more like that. Like, you can't waste the planes, and especially after you lost so many planes, it would be a great idea to use your 3rd squadron, just to give a little bit more regeneration and breathing time to the other squads.
I like this drop, by the way. You initiated the drop outside of spotting range, so you got in and were able to do that. That's probably your best drop so far. It results in a kill. Even if it didn't result in a kill, it's still, I would say, your best drop so far. Also, at this point, move your carrier forward. There's no reason to stay back so far. Terrible drop here. Yeah, exactly. The island was used as a flak shield. Right, exactly. Ops aren't broken. Drifton, I thought they were. I thought they only had 1 op available, but I haven't been following Wargaming's announcements if they fixed that or not.
I don't think there was an announcement that they fixed it. Yeah, I don't like this follow-up drop here with that squadron. That was pretty much just guaranteed to lose more planes for at best 1 torpedo that could hit, but was dropped at a bad angle too.
He started turning while you're halfway through it, and to me, that illustrates the difference between fighting against bots versus fighting against humans. Humans are going to start dodging earlier, and they're going to do things that maybe you don't expect. So, lining up the attack before you start the drop pattern is so much more important against humans. And I think that might be something for you to practice on, Cthulhu. It's co-op, so we always talk about how co-op can make people lazy because they're used to playing a certain way because of the bots, their opponents playing a certain way. I think what I'm seeing so far, dude, is I would absolutely work on trying to initiate drops at a better angle before you even get into drop. This one right now, this Duncan drop right now, is a fantastic example of that. You turn the wrong way. And so you approached him at an angle. If you had turned the opposite direction, you would have gone more 90 degrees perpendicular.
Yeah, but his drop wouldn't have been bad. He hit with 5 rockets out of 6 there. That was actually insanely lucky.
It goes back to when I make, you know, when I give feedback and I say something, and the game's like, well, the hell with you, I'm still gonna do this. You know, I'm gonna prove you wrong. So, yeah.
But you're right with the point. It makes people a bit lazy in co-op. Like, if you play like this in a random battle,
yeah,
you're gonna end up deep playing 10 minutes into the game.
Now, and like I said, moving up I think is very important because at this point, only the Duncan can shoot you. Only the Duncan, you can't be seen. Move your carrier forward. Use autopilot. It gets your planes into the enemy sooner so that you get more damage on them. And Cobra 5.0, thank you very much for the resub, dude. I appreciate it. Is that 5 months? Yeah, 5 months in a row. Thank you, dude. Really
what
appreciate
I
you,
would
man.
have done here is, you killed his module, right? It looks like he didn't actually DCP it, but you gotta pay attention on those drops. If they actually DCP it, wait out the DCP timer for your follow attack, so you have
get
a
a permanent
chance.
flood.
So you could get, or you have a chance of getting a permanent flood. If he didn't DCP, you can attack right away. But this is something definitely to pay attention on.
Falcon, Blue Falcon, thank you so much for your gift of subs, dude. We get to see the Stevie slideshow. There's Stevie as a kitten. He's in our basement. That's Dutchman, Air, Mike Fett, Breach Blocked, and B Crisp. Guys, hype in chat. Say thanks to Blue Falcon. Look at him. That was when I was having stuffed crust Chicago style Rosati's pizza, and Stevie was licking up my plate. He loves pizza.
Super high damage for a co-op game.
Oh, absolutely it is, and that's why Cthulhu sent this in. I'm sure. Oh God, look at Stevie and Prue just hanging out together. It's so cute. So cute.
Blue Falk 0N66 gifted air 3840.
I think it showcases the power of the torpedoes in the USN line. I still feel like you could do more with your dive bombers, and you didn't really do much with the rockets at all. So I'd say work on practicing those, yeah?
Yeah, cycle a bit more between the plane types, and especially on the dive bombers. Pay more attention to the flak.
If you get a free module dismount, yeah, try putting HP in, sure. So we're almost to a hype train now, thanks to the gifted subs. So very much thanks, guys. 122k damage in a co-op game with a CV is still nice, though. That's right, Wolf. It absolutely is. He came in first place.
I don't get that much in co-op usually in a tier 10 CV, just because everybody dies so quickly.
Right.
It was a kind of a favorable matchmaking in that case. Like, there were no destroyers that rushed in and just killed everything with torpedoes. Also, he would have caught these bombers even without the 10%, I think. At the start, looking at this replay again.
What?
Even without the 10% extra radius on the fighters, he would have caught these first set of planes.
It's very close. Maybe, maybe not. But like I said before even looking at the replay, to me that was why he did the radius upgrade. But I think we kind of pointed out, you and I together, he didn't need to use that upgrade at all. Just get closer in front of the target, then drop the planes.
No, it's just getting a good idea of how big your circle actually is without having the fighters placed, and then realizing where you need to place them.
Don't Americans have a larger fighter radius by default anyway?
I think that is only the Enterprise.
Okay. I wasn't 100% sure, that's why I was asking.
I think the default radius for fighters at tier 8 is like 3.5.
So Cthulhu,
No, 3 kilometers. It's 3.
They might dodge, but I'll tell you what: if you do it closer in front of them, if you learn the radius, the default radius, you'll actually get them every time.
No, bot CVs do not try to avoid. The CV has its course where it wants to fly the planes, and it flies it straight there. It doesn't care what is in the way.
And yes, Wolf, in randoms where fighters do spot, yes, the increased diameter can help spot. It could also hurt spotting if they go farther back, you know what I mean, into your spawn. So it's a double-edged sword.
The Soviets also have like it's pretty much 3 kilometers all around. This is why it's very easy to spot on the mini map.
Right.
Like at least if you're a CV player and you're used to it, and you see enemy fighter placements, and you can just tell by the size of the circle if they have any fighter skills or not.
Yeah. So Cthulhu, yes, doing it too close can impact it. You know, whether they could latch. I would say, from my personal experience, you dropped too close, too early, and you could have dropped a little bit later, like 1 or 2 seconds later. That's just something to practice, something to learn. You'll get there. The other thing is, use your dive bombers more. You did good damage with those dive bombers.
I mean, I'm not even sure if he could have used it more there, because he lost pretty much this whole squadron the first time he used it. And that is a huge setback.
So when it comes to dodging flak, like what you want to try to do is keep turning sideways as you get approaching to your target. Look for gaps in the flak and try to turn towards the gap is what works for me. It's not 100%, but it definitely helps versus just going straight in at the same speed and everything.
You can just alternate speeds too, like it takes your speed into account where it shoots the flag. So if you then suddenly you were boosted, if you then suddenly go full on the brakes,
right,
the flag will be way too far in front.
Right.
What also helps is initiating the attack run, because the dive bombers will actually gain height, so they go over the flag for a little bit, and the torp bombers will go lower and will be below the flag.
Right. Right. So, I mean, once upon a time, they've changed. Wargaming changed it. Once upon a time, all you had to do is hit the S key and watch as the flag burst in front of you. But Wargaming's changed that, so that's not as easy to do anymore. But, you know.
I mean, there is nothing wrong. Like, if you constantly have troubles with taking the flag, then maybe taking the aircraft armor skill is not the worst thing in the world. Until you get better with it.
I think we saw here in this particular replay, aircraft armor helped. But I
helped. He doesn't have it, right?
Oh, sorry. Would have helped. Yes. Apologies. But yeah, I agree with you, Grunty. I think as Cthulhu improves in the game, and you know, it's good, whatever you want to call it. You know, it becomes less impactful, right? Less important. Cool. All right. Well, Cthulhu, thank you for sending that replay in. I think a lot of people learned something with this replay today, so that's awesome.